Floor is
Okay.
yours.
All right. So we're going to talk about something that is one of my most favorite subjects, which is time management. And the reason I want to talk to you guys about time management today is because for many, many years, I did not manage my time. I was always late for everything. I had problems. I had lots of excuses why I couldn't get things done. And there was always something getting in the way of me actually producing the results that I was supposed to produce. And I blamed that on everybody else except Alex. Then one day back in 1983, when I joined real estate, I went to some seminars. And in 1984, I met a man named Martin Root who had a program called Time on My Side. So I went through that program, and what happened was everything shifted in my life. I started to work with a diary, like a nice leather binder book, and he basically, what he said was, which is my next slide, okay, as long as it's working, you can't manage time. It's impossible. If you look at the history of time, which I've done a couple of time management seminars on, basically over 2,000 years ago, you know, the Egyptians are the ones that really started to look at time more you know, detailed. They realized that there was obviously the daytime and the nighttime, and they wanted to measure it. So what happened was they built this thing called the obelisk, and the obelisk, they noticed that it was, you know, as the sun moved across the sky, it cast a shadow. So they drew a circle and they split the day into dark and daytime. And then they started measuring it. And over time, people get very obsessed about time. There's actually an atomic clock that only loses like 2 seconds in every 500 years or some stupid thing like that. It's ridiculous. So people get obsessed, and people always say, I don't have the time, I can't get it done, I ran out of time. There's always an excuse. So when I realized that it's not the time that you can control, because it's impossible. There's 24 hours in a day. We can't do anything about the last few minutes that left. The only thing we can control is the activities we put into the time. So that's the reason when I started doing these seminars, and I've been doing them since 1984, about time management, and keep saying you can't manage the time, let's manage activities. And that's how I designed everything over my career, is to focus in on the activities. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about, because, you know, with all the coaching we're doing, you make out all these fancy reports, and you got your 12-week season, and you got all this stuff, and then, you know, we get no production in some areas. Some areas you put more focus on, and then you have to start thinking about, why is it that I can't get things done in one area and I'm getting it done in another area? So today's session is going to be all about why that happens. Now, being the kind of person that I am, and also I have been studying, you know, personality since 1984, I have to address that every person approaches time management in a different format. So let's take a look at it. So here it is. Inside of us, we have a motor, and the motor is either fast or slow. It's either outgoing or it's reserved. So we are either more, hey, let's make things happen, or we are like kind of like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. As a matter of fact, many years ago, somebody said to me, there is 3 kinds of people in the world: people that make things happen, people that watch things happen, and some people that go, what happened? Okay, so we kind of got to see where do we fit. Also inside of us, there's a compass, and the compass is either taking us towards task, so we're task oriented, or we're people oriented. In other words, we're either into relationships or we're into details. So when you look at yourself, okay, let's see where you fit. So outgoing, reserved, task-oriented, people-oriented. So if you're an outgoing and task-oriented individual, you call the D. Outgoing and people-oriented, you call an I. And reserved and people-oriented, you're an S. And then reserved and task-oriented, you call the C. And the reason I touch on this again, and I know a couple of you like Wayne, you took the test, and so did Julie took the test. And I don't know if the rest of you guys taken the test, but I know that Brandon taken the test so many times. He's actually taught some of this stuff, and he heard it about 1,000 times from me in the last 17, 18 years. Actually, it's been 17 years because Chantal is turning 18. And so you and I met about 17 years ago when she was just born. So let's take a look at, how this affects us and who we are, because based on our personalities, we're going to approach time and task in a specific way. So let me see oops. Okay. So the D is dominant, driving, and they're a doer. The I is described as inspiring, interesting, and interactive. The S's are supportive, steady, and stable. And then the C's are cautious, competent, and careful. These are just some, as you can see, each letter represents the personality, and we put words in there that starts with that letter. Okay, it makes it easier for people to understand things sometimes. So let's take a look at what this means, because like I said, everybody handles time in a different format. So here's the D. For the D, the time and is like an instrument. Okay, they use time as a vehicle. Okay, and it's interesting, their personality, because here's what they do. This and I've done a lot of studies on this. I do a time management training, okay, which is through Personality Insights. So, I do a lot of this, and every time I meet somebody, I have a certain standard that I deal with. For example, if you were late to me on a listing appointment, or you're late for me on an appointment, I probably wouldn't do business with you. And, some of you have experienced me getting upset about time, or not being on time, or not warning me in time. I know, Brandon, you've seen me over the years. I get really fanatical about people. Every time we do a training, I want people on time. When I ran my office, if you did not show for the training on time, we locked the door and you were not allowed in. Like, I was very strict. I went totally fanatical about the time, because I realized on how much time is being wasted. The other thing I did as a broker, I used to have on my door, I used to have my schedule and all of that. And you had to adhere to my schedule, because what I discovered, having, 70, 80 agents, you're pulled in 70, 80 different directions. Brandon is pulled into 600 different directions. So you can't work on other people's schedule. People have to work to my schedule. So a lot of times when clients even deal with me, I say to them, that's not the way I work. I'm sorry, that's not the way I operate. And I make them work to my schedule, as opposed to them setting the schedule, because then they screw up my day and screw up my week. So D handles time as an instrument. Now, what's interesting about the D also, okay, is this. They're easy on themselves, but hard on others. Now, in my case, I'm tough on myself as well as others, but I'm an enigma, so to speak, because I get crazy about if I'm late. The very first disagreement, she called it a fight I had with my wife when I first met her. I called her on the phone, and she said to me, "I'll call you back in a couple of minutes." Well, about 17 minutes later, she called me back, and I just chastised her, because I said, "You said a couple of minutes. To me, that means 2. I took it literally. She said, "Well, that's just a figure of speech." I said, "Not to me." So she knows now, after 6 years of being together, is that when I say we go at 6 o'clock, we go at 6 o'clock. Like, I'll walk to the door, and I says, "I'm walking out the door, and we have to leave here at 12 o'clock. It's not 12:01. We leave at 12 o'clock, because what I do is I use time to measure distances and say, okay, I have to be there at a certain time. And I hate being late. In 17 years of doing my trainings, I have, never been late for my own training. I just not going to allow myself, because that sets a bad example. So anyways, I'm different, but a lot of these, they go, well, it's okay. They expect everybody else to be on time, but not themselves. So let's take a look at the next point. The I, they operate in the here and now. See, I's, they don't keep a schedule. Their attitude is, well, I got here today, so what's your problem? because they're into relationships, what happens is they're more looking at the relationship and they don't get too upset about being specifically on time. By the way, a lot of people culturally also deal different ways with time. Like, for example, people that live in the South, in warmer climates, like in Cuba, in South America, in Central America, they take time in a different format because they don't move too fast. It's too hot. So it's not a big deal. It's if I get there on time, great. But if I don't, then I'm late, no big deal. Same thing with Italians and Greeks and people usually in more of the southern hemispheres. Canadians are more adamant about being on time. Germans, Swiss, they're insane, okay? Many years ago, I went traveling in Europe and my wife and I were catching a train. We were late. 1 minute, the train left. It was like insane, okay? Germany, the French also into relationship. They're more I-type relationship oriented. So again, there's some cultural situations where people handle time. And the reason I talk about all of this is because we're not just talking about us. We're talking about our customers. So if you can identify the customer of their personality type, then we know how to treat them to make sure we get the sale, we get the relationship built. Like I said, you're late with me, I'm not gonna do business with you, because the way I look at it is, the way I think about it is, if that's the way you treat me before we got into a relationship in business, then you're gonna mistreat me, you're going to lie to me, you're gonna make mistakes, you're not gonna be on time, you're not gonna be on target. And I put this whole bunch of stuff around it. The eyes, with them, it's like, it's the here and now, it's a relationship, I love you, it's hug, hug, kiss, kiss. And so you need to learn about the different personalities to understand when you're dealing with these customers on what happens, okay? And you know, that's why it's crucial to me, is you speak a language of the other person so you can interact with them. Next point, we're talking about the next group, which is the, well, wait a minute. So the eyes are usually easy on themselves and easy on others. Like my wife, she's an ID personality. So when she's late, you know, she's like, it's no big deal. When other people are late, she goes, well, it's okay. They probably got stuck in traffic. Actually, sometimes she'll even give excuses for other people why they're late. I don't. I'm like, it's unacceptable. So again, you know, you just got to see on how these people interact and react. Next point, here are the S's. S's look at time as a friend or an enemy. If they get things done, then it's their friend. If they can't get things done, then it's the enemy. They blame everything on the time, and it's I'm a victim. That's their whole mentality. I'm a victim to that time. It has conquered me. It has overtaken me. You know, I was not able to do all of this. And they'll come up with a million excuses about why they couldn't get it done. Robert Kiyosaki said to me many years ago, he says, you know, there are two kinds of people that produce results and the people that produce explanations why there isn't any. So the question is, and these people usually produce a lot of reasons why they couldn't get it done. Same with the eyes. They usually come up with some excuses why they couldn't get it done. Now, what's interesting about the S's is that they are hard on themselves and easy on others. So they're actually apologetic to other people when the other people are late. So it's really interesting. Oh, it's okay, no problem, no big deal. You know, I'm sure you got stuck in traffic. No, it's okay. But they're tough on themselves. They beat themselves up. And they have this feeling of, I can never get anything done because time conquered me. So they're really tough on themselves. The next group is obviously the C's, the perfectionist. For them, there was never enough time. If they could add more time from a previous day that they didn't get stuff done, they would love to tack it on, but it doesn't exist. I remember years ago when the cell phones first came out, if you didn't use all your minutes 1 month, you could add it to the next month. I don't know if you remember that, Brandon, but you could have a plan where you could transfer the minutes. Now it's just unlimited minutes everywhere, but it was really interesting, you know. And I remember watching the clock on my phone to see how much time I had left to make sure I didn't go over it because I didn't want to pay the extra fees. So if the month before I didn't use it, I just transferred it. That's what the perfectionists are. Never enough time. And the problem with the perfection is that for them also, they use time as an excuse that they couldn't get things done because there was just not enough. Now, the good news is about the C-type personalities is generally they don't take on more than they can perform, okay? So, you know, they're just focusing on it. The only problem that I see with the C personalities, and this is, I've seen customers like this where they just always getting ready to begin, to get started, to get going. I just lost a listing with somebody. Man, the guy analyzed everything, I mean, to death. And by the time he finished analyzing everything, I should just forced him to list with me, but he didn't. All of a sudden, other agents showed up and they promised lower commission and all kinds of goofy stuff they're going to do. And I lost the listing because they overanalyze everything. Okay. So it's very difficult for them to make a decision. So the C-type personalities, excuse me, they are hard on themselves and they're very hard on others. Like they beat themselves up and boy, you're late and you're not doing something right. I mean, it's like game over because I've dealt with C's, you know, and even if I didn't fulfill, if I said to them, I'm going to send you something at a certain time and I didn't, boy, I'll tell you, I was in big trouble. So again, you just need to understand your clients on how they handle time. This is not just about us handling time. It's about our clients handling time. So how you cannot manage time. We talked about that. So here's what you got to do. You got to say to yourself, what do I want to accomplish and how do I want to accomplish it? And so you're going to start using time as a vehicle on how to put everything together in such a way so that you can work with it more efficiently. So let's continue. Managing activities versus goals. Okay, and goals. So you're going to manage your activities. So you set your goal and say, here's my 12-week plan. Here's my season. These are the things I got to do. Now, what are the activities? The activities that matter, okay? You know, all of those little things that you have to do. And sometimes, you know, I'm sure when you guys first filled out all the paperwork, you go like, yeah, this is really silly. I got to put all this little stuff in there. Some of you put stuff in there kind of general, not get specific. Well, here's the problem. If you don't get really exactly specific, you're not going to accomplish it because it's too vague. So what I recommend to you is that you go back to your seasons and reread them again and see if you can define them more specifically, okay? Because it's going to be very important as we coach you to help you to produce the results. I can't help you if I don't know what you really, really want. If you get very specific, we can look at it together. It's like Julie and I, when you started with your 12-week season, we talked about it, and it didn't look like you could get a bunch of that stuff done because it was just way too much commitment in one area, and you couldn't do the other thing, you know? And so we both realized that, and that way I was able to help you, okay? So, oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. I should have shut off my phone. It just started to ring. There, I got to give myself a heck. Okay, be quiet, phone. All right. Okay, next point. Time versus activities, okay? Time versus activities. It's not the time you put in, it's what you put into the time. This stupid phone, excuse me, guys. Okay, there it is. It's not what you, it's not the time you put in. Sometimes people say to me, when I had my real estate office, an agent said to me, well, I'm working hard. You're working hard? But what actually you're going to be doing? And we're going to address this about how you actually do things and why you do things. So, anybody ever heard of Paretos Principle? Well, if you haven't, I actually read the book. And if you want to really produce great results for yourself, it's a good idea to buy the book and read it. What basically Paretos Principle says is that 80% of your results come from 20% of the time used. 80% of your production comes from 20% of your customers, or 80% of your results from 20% of your leads. As a matter of fact, I can demonstrate it to you very easily. I bet you any money that you wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. If you went into your closet and every time you wore something, you just turned the hanger around every day to see, when you hung it up, to see what you actually wore, at the end of the month, you would realize most of your stuff you never use. I mean, I've got so many clothes. When we moved over here, we had a big house with big closets. So we wanted to get rid of a bunch of stuff. I got rid of probably 100 t-shirts, maybe 50 shirts. I got rid of a whole bunch of jackets because I realized I haven't worn those things in years. And we're looking at moving again, and we've been purging and purging and purging and taking stuff to the Goodwill and donations because we're realizing we're not using this stuff. As a matter of fact, even in the kitchen, we use the same set of plates every day, okay? And we put them in the dishwasher, we wash them, so we never get to it. We have a setting for 16 people. We've never had 16 people in our house. I don't know why the heck we have all those plates. But what it is we accumulate stuff and then we don't utilize it, okay? And the same thing with your clients. Sometimes I talk to agents and I said, how many leads you got? Oh, I got 2,850. No, you don't. You have 2,850 names in your computer. And I guarantee you that you could probably delete 90% of those people because they're never going to buy or sell. And you waste way too much time managing the database and not doing the work that you need to do. You know, technology is supposed to make our life easier. Sometimes I feel like it made my time, my job harder because I'm on this website, I'm on that website, I've got this CRM, I got that CRM, I'm working on this website over here. I got to put stuff up and I got to load over here. I got to check these emails. I got to check this. Sometimes I got 300 emails I haven't even looked at. So what we need to look at is every single day, what are you specifically doing that actually producing results? So don't tell me you're working hard. I don't care. What are you producing? Results, not just what you do in the emotions and go. You know, sometimes people confuse business with business. It almost sounds the same, but it's confusing. So, excuse me, let's go to the next point. So here are the categories, things to do. Urgent and important, okay? So those are the things you should be doing first. So what you need to do is look at your daily tasks, look at it on Sunday night, look at it for a whole week and say, okay, what is it something that I have to do every single day that's going to produce me results? For me, it was prospecting, and it was every morning. And the reason I did prospecting in the morning, because here's what I discovered over the years. 36 years in the business, if I didn't do it in the morning and I said, I'll do it later, I just never did it. Okay? I always found something that got in the way of producing that result. So what I had to do is say to myself, okay, I plug it into my diary, my day timer, every single day from 9 o'clock till noon, I'm going to prospect. I'm going to look for new business. And that's what I did every single day. When I was selling real estate full-time, that was my job. And many years ago, I went to a seminar with Mike Ferry, and he said, do you know what your job is, Alex? And I said, well, of course, I'm a realtor and I do this and that. And he goes, no, your real job. Your job is to prospect, go on appointments, and negotiate contracts. I said, but what about putting up signs and doing all? Is that somebody else's job? That's not your job. That's $8 an hour work. Why don't you measure how much money you make an hour selling real estate? I measured it out, making $1,500 an hour. So why don't you do more of that and hire somebody to do all the goofy stuff? That's the first time I got myself an assistant because I was bogged down with a bunch of other stuff. In other words, the thing that I was told is that if I don't have an assistant, I am one. Okay? So you need to think about that. So urgent and important is the number one thing that you're going to do. The next group is important but not urgent. This is B. I've got important things in my follow-up list that is not urgent, so I'm not going to focus on it. Until you get the urgent and the important done, forget about the important and not urgent. But you know what we do? Sometimes those B things to do are easier than the A things to do. It's much easier for me to play on my with my CRM and search properties on the MLS versus making the prospecting calls. Okay, so let's take a look at what is really, really, really crucial. Okay, and the next group, C, is neither or neither, or however you say it. It's neither of those things, and guess what you do with those things? Generally, you dump them. You get rid of them. You don't even bother. Like, you know, just to give you an example, I take notes all the time, okay? I take notes. There's sheets of paper beside me. I write down stuff I need to do or something's triggered in my mind when I'm on a webinar, and then I look at it after I finish, and I go cross out, cross out, cross out. I don't really need to do that. Why am I doing that? And in the last couple of months, there have been so many webinars and so many seminars that I signed up for. And it comes to the seminar and I'm thinking to myself, why on earth would I get on this? So that I mess up my mind with a whole bunch of more information and I'm not going to do the things I need to do and I'm not going to focus my energy. So you know what? Just got to stay away from all the extra distractions. Focus on activities, not the time. Let's look at the activities every single day. Let's look at how we handle things. So setting goals, you set your goals with priorities, which are based on your values, things that are important to you. And so I take everything that I want to do in all the different phases of my life and I gel it down and I say, this is the crucial thing I need to do. Like my job right now is to contact people, put people in my database, interact with them. I've got 768 leads, names and numbers in my computer that I gathered over the last couple of months through Facebook ads. Most of them are from Canada. They can't cross the border. They're from New York and Massachusetts and up in the Northeast. They're not allowed to come into Florida, okay? So guess what? All I've been doing is sending information, going back and forth, and the results I've been getting, Zippo. I was actually able to get somebody from Indiana and they bought a house the other day from me in Tampa. But I'm telling you, I got all these leads, so I set them up on an auto drip program, texting and emailing to them to keep them in the pipe, okay? So when the border opens from Canada, hopefully I'm gonna get some of these people to come down. And they said it's gonna open June 21st, so we'll see what happens, okay? Now, this is the wheel of life. I've used this over the years, and the reason I wanted to show it to you, because, you know, we break things down in 4 categories. I used to have it broken down in 8 categories. And the reason I did is because I've fallen down on some of those categories and I needed to address it for myself. So that's one of the things I learned. But here is the things that we focus on in your season, okay? No, it's not a blank page. There's something there. The physical. So you set yourself some physical specific targets and goals, and then you block off the time to accomplish those specific things. So every day I work out. I either work out by doing something like lifting weights or walking or doing something, or I play racquetball. Now that the club opened on Monday, we're able to go back and play racquetball. So for the past 2 days, I've been to the club playing racquetball. But before that, I had to do more walking on the beach. I had to do other things because I was not able to do some of the things that I needed to do. So, but I take a look at it, and you guys all set yourself some targets on physical. Some of you were not very specific. Oh, I want to be in better shape. I want to feel better. You know, I want to lose a few pounds. It's not good enough. You got to get very, very specific and drill down. The second place is spiritual. Again, you set some goals for yourself. You made a decision on how you want to handle this. And then what you got to do is decide on exactly what you're going to put in there. Relational, obviously, you know, this is a very strong area for some people. It's not as important as other people. For me, yes, it's important. However, I have a very good relationship, so I only have to fine tune it on a regular basis versus starting to build a relationship. And, you know, I'm reaching out to family. Matter of fact, last night I booked a flight to Green Bay so that Chantal can go see her grandma, who's like in her 80s, and who knows what can happen. So, you know, wants to continue building that relationship. Financial, this is the biggie, because here's the thing that I look at. People used to say, all you think about is money. Money is evil. Well, let me tell you something. Money may be not the most important thing in life, but it's second to air, okay? It's second to breathing. Because if you have no money, you have no choices. So if you take care of the financial, then you can have all the best relationships, you can pursue your spiritual quest, and you can get in great physical shape. But if you don't have any money, guess what? Nothing else seems to work either. So I think, like, I do put a lot of emphasis on the financial, the money part of it, but I need the money to live the kind of lifestyle I want to live. So, you know, you need to look at it and say, okay, how important is that to me? And for some people, if you got all the money in the world, well, then this is a mute point, okay? Okay, I'm going to give you an example on business goals. So you say to yourself, I want to prospect 30 contacts per day. You can contact 10 people an hour. So guess what? You plug in 3 hours a day prospecting into your calendar. That's very simple. We're going to talk a little bit about tracking, and you need to figure out how many contacts you need to make in order to get a result. Okay, I used to calculate that out, and I figured out that between cold prospecting, calling FISBOs, calling expireds, calling follow-up of people, I need to speak with 240 people in order to get one sale. So if I wanted to get a sale every single week, what I had to do is talk to at least 240 people every single week. Now, my ratio was actually got better later, and I discovered that I had to speak to a lot less people. You know, I mean, I would prospect about, you know, talk to about 37 people a day, and I would sell 8 to 9 homes, 10 homes a month. Okay, so again, you just need to look at it on how effective you are. Plus, the reason I was more effective is I targeted FISBOs and expireds mainly. Those were the ones I targeted. Next point. So let's take a look at your health. You say, I want to lose some weight. I want to lose 10 pounds. By the way, in the last week, 9 days, I lost 10 pounds. So 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. If you cut your calories back 500 calories a day, okay, in 1 week, 7 days, you could save 3,500 calories. In 10 weeks, you could lose 10 pounds. That's the slow method. Now, what I'm doing is I cut my calories back from 2,500 that I need to function as a person to about 500-600 calories a day. So I'm accelerating my loss of weight, okay? I'm losing almost a pound a day, about 3/4 of a pound a day, because I wanted to accelerate it. The reason is because I was eating like crazy during this whole shutdown, and I put on 15 pounds, okay? So I thought, you know what? I have to take drastic measures to reduce things. Brandon, I know you lost a lot of weight, about 60 pounds. It took you many, many, many months, but you did it very systematically, very strategically, 1 day at a time. And that's the only way you can do it. Excuse me. So decide on your priorities, what's important to you based on your values. And when you do that, then you get yourself a week at a glance. Now, I know some of you are going, man, you are dating yourself. We got all these apps. We got Google schedule, and we got Yahoo, and we got all of these things. I got my phone, and I can put all that stuff. No, you know what? If you really, truly want to control the activities and the time, I would highly recommend you do this. Get yourself a week at a glance so you can see the whole week in one shot. And what I have, just to let you know, I have my week at a glance right here. It's sitting right beside me. Yes, I have my phone. I put my reminders in my phone to make sure it goes beep to remind me that in an hour I have to do a certain call or I have to do certain things. However, what happens is if I'm on prospecting on the phone and somebody says to me, Alex, I'd like to see you tomorrow at noon. I look over here, I go, sorry, I got an appointment at noon already. I can see it immediately. Then I put it in my diary, and then I go to my telephone and I put in the reminder, okay? So this way, because you're on the phone, you can't see your calendar, okay? And yeah, you go, yeah, but I can look at it. So now I'm gonna say, hey, wait a minute. Let me just, you know what? Trust me, this works a lot more efficiently. And then I buy the week at a glance in advance for the following year. So there it is, 2021. I already bought my one for next year, and I already start thinking about some of the stuff that I have to plan out. You lay out your year based on your priorities. Again, one of the first things I usually plug in on my for my next year is my vacation. I plugged in my vacation last year for this year. Luckily, I plugged in some of the vacations early this year because with the pandemic, we couldn't fly anywhere. You know, as a matter of fact, we had to cancel our Costa Rica trip because we couldn't get in there. So here's a schedule, okay? Scheduling: 8 hours of sleep, 30 minutes of exercise, 1 hour of training, 8 hours of business, 1 hour of travel, 3 hours with family, 30 minutes for planning, 1 hour for spiritual, 1 hour for entertainment. This is just an example. Now you decide on how you're gonna take that 24 hours a day you have that you received and what are you gonna do with it, okay? Write appointments in pencil because things may change. Write everything else in pen so you don't change it. For example, I put in their prospecting in pen. When I book an appointment to see somebody or somebody's gonna come and see me, I put it in pencil because a lot of times people call up and say, hey, I need to change that, or it's not happening, or whatever. Like this mastermind call is in my calendar for every single week. My call with Julie, my call with Wayne is in there in pen every single week. My prospecting is in there in pen. Other things I kind of write in pencil. My exercise is in pen. I am going to go and exercise. So again, you just need to get really focused on exactly what you're going to do. Get yourself 2 markers, a red one and a green one. Now I know this sounds really childish, but you know what? We're very visual people. As a matter of fact, you know, when they did studies on it, found that most people, about 65% of the population, are visual. Based on NLP, you're visual, you're auditory, you hear things, or you're kinesthetic, which means you feel things. But 65% of the population is visual. So if you use a red pen and a green marker, so here's what you do. In the evening, you sit down with your diary, a week at a glance. Everything that you accomplished, you put a green check mark there beside it. Everything you didn't do that day, put a red X beside it. That way you get to see exactly what you're doing, what's working and what's not working, what you're following through with, what you're not following through. As a matter of fact, if you go on a weight loss program and you join Jenny Craig or one of those places, I never used any of them, but one of the things they do is they get you to write down every single day what you eat. Then you analyze it and see, I know what my problem is. Let me tell you something. Over this pandemic, I didn't have to write it down. I just realized that when I went to bed at night, I would get myself a little bowl of ice cream and put some whipped cream on top of it, and I would be laying there watching TV. And then I was wondering, I said to Kay one day, how come I put on 15 pounds? She says, it's maybe the ice cream or the chocolate bars you've been eating, okay? So this way, it's the same thing with time management. You want to see what's working and what's not working, okay? Review everything at night. You review your appointments, you review what you did, what you didn't do, and don't go beating yourself up. Just understand what you did and what you didn't do. It's nice and simple. Okay, this day is gone. Don't look in the rearview mirror. You can't change anything from yesterday or from today, what I already done. I already said that, I already did that, or I didn't do that, it's gone. Next, okay? So in the evening, before I go to bed, take 30 minutes, I plan the day. For next day, I review my day that had just happened. That way, I am very focused. And I also read my goals in the evening and read them in the morning so that you're focused on what you want to accomplish. Review your values and your goals. I just said that, okay? I got ahead of myself on my chart here, okay? You manage your activities. Now, tracking. This is one of the things that, you know, again, I was very fanatical about it. And you know, I prepared this sheet here years ago. I tracked every single listing I took, every single sale I made, the activities, everything for 5 years straight. Now, I tracked it all the time for the last 30 plus years since I've been in real estate, But one day I just sat down and I did a synopsis of just 5 years to take a look at it. And you know what I discovered? I discovered that in 60 months, I only had 2 months I never took a listing. 2 months in 60 months. Generally, I would take 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 listings in a month. Same thing with sales. I looked at the sales. In 60 months, I only had 2 months that I didn't make a sale. And you know what was interesting was? It was correlating to the time I didn't take a listing. So if I didn't work and didn't work hard that month and didn't take a listing, guess what? The following month, I had no sales. So again, you just track your results, track your activities, and make sure that you're focusing on what's important. Tracking activities, time schedule, and know what causes your success and what causes your challenges. Why is it that you're not doing what you said you were gonna do, Wayne, or Julie, or Brandon, or Alex, or Tim, or whoever else, you know? Why aren't you doing it, okay? And it's important to understand it so you can correct it. Track everything. I track my time, listen, 3 years ago, I went to Europe with my family. I laid the trip out to cover 10 countries in 22 days. I measured all the mileage. We landed in London. I measured the mileage. I know when I had to get to the ferry, I should say the channel. We went in the channel underneath the ocean. When it was leaving, I booked the ticket. When we arrived at the other side, how long it took to go from there to Amsterdam. We had a day in Amsterdam, when to check in, when to check out, when to go. I mean, I had that thing wired down to the minutes, okay? Why? Because it was important that we stayed on track so we could see all of the things that we wanted to see. You know, my wife wanted to spend hours and hours in the Louvre in Paris. You know what? I said, go ahead. We blocked off the time. Go ahead and do what you want to do. We went to do something else. So again, it's like by tracking and focusing on what was important, we were able to take this trip. We had the most amazing time. And I'm so glad we did that 3 years ago, because right now we couldn't go to Europe. Anyways, so this leads me to our whole coaching. Okay, here it is. Wayne, you need to log into the site and make sure you fill this report in before our call on Friday. Julie, make sure you fill in the report before our call on Friday. Okay, this is really crucial, because then I get to see exactly what you did do during the week that you said you were going to do, and then we can correct things you didn't do, and then we can work on things that you know how to move ahead. Also, what's important is the new HVTs, high value targets. Okay, you need to fill that in, take a look at it. Again, this is analyzing what you're doing and how you're producing results. And then the new ATMs, you know, actions that matter. What is it that you're doing, that you're producing the results and things are happening for you? Okay. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Great information, Alex. So Alex coached me for a lot of years. And when he talks about this stuff and this structure, he lives it. I mean, when he's saying this, he actually is this way. When he talks about his vacation, it is so regimented like that, it wouldn't be a vacation for most of us. But but that's how he functions, right? And so
yeah, we went on vacation one time in California. Brandon made the mistake on one of our calls. He said, I think what we should do is go to California. And that was like, you know, in the summertime. And this was like in March. While we were talking, I booked it already online. So you got to be careful what you say.
He's a doer. He gets things done. So structure-wise, I mean, when he talks about the personality types, we're all kind of a different variation of that. And time management's going to be a little bit different for us. For me, I had a hard time structuring out my entire day like he does. Like he laid that out. He laid out 24 hours. He knows what he's doing for all 24 hours, and he will do that. For me, it was easier for me just to start by doing the morning, you know, so I could start to build that habit. It's kind of the same thing as you guys are filling out these forms. It's a new habit for you guys, and it becomes tough. It becomes a chore, so to speak. But if you trust in the process and you do it over time, you'll start to see the results, and it develops that habit, which becomes easier. And that would be the same thing with your time management. So it's important that you for your sake of your goals, to have structure to your time, to understand what tasks you need to get done, do your cut list, the things you're going to do, and then schedule the time to do it. And then you'll start to achieve that stuff. So any questions for Alex?
Yeah, this is the question and answer period. So
Just
anybody,
unmute yourself if you have a question.
yeah, question,
That
comment.
was just a lot of good information, though. It really was, Alex. It just makes you really hone in on the fact that you have to be regimented. And it's almost like using a muscle in your body. I know for me, Brandon's really starting to hone in on my mornings, which has been great. And I've done a great job doing that recently. But it is like a muscle. Boy, Hattie, my night sucks still. Man, I can't seem to get to where I get to the part where I review everything. And, you know, I've done it once or twice, but it's definitely not a regimented thing to set up the next day. So I find that the morning, I'm rushing my morning trying to get things ready to go for the rest of the day. So
If I can make a suggestion,
still.
if I can make a suggestion to you, Tim, the night before, seriously think about what is really important in the morning and what you need to do. Okay. I think Stephen Covey had something about, you know, the habits of a highly effective people. And what he talked about is write down 6 things that are important and then put them in order, which is the most important, number 1, number 2, number 6. And unless you got number 1 done, you cannot go to number 2. So get that done. Here's what I used to do. I would make a list, put them in order of importance, and then I would look at the list and I would go, nah, and I started number 2, okay? Or I did number 6 because it seemed easier. Okay?
Or you start all of them at the same time and then you get nothing done.
You're absolutely correct. A lot of times I would do that. It's kind of like my wife freaks out on me. I usually have like 15 different windows open on my computer. She goes, how can you do that? Well, I'm actually very good at multitasking, okay? So if I'm working on something, like I was talking to a customer this morning, I could open up the MLS. I could look in the MLS. I looked in the other MLS. And then this morning I went out and took some videos of the properties that they wanted to see, so that I took my videos versus using the videos of the agent who they're going to favor it in a certain way, right? I took the real pictures, okay? And so anyways, but again, what's most important? Number 1, what is the most important thing? What's number 2, and so on. And when you do it that way, I think it's going to be more effective. Some people think if they work with a schedule, it's restricting. No, it's freeing. You know what's freeing to me? I look at my calendar, it says prospect. That's all I do. For 3 hours, I do nothing but prospect in the morning. You know, and some of the prospecting now is not calling necessarily. I do the calls, and then what I do is I do a lot of texting, and I send people text back and forth. And what I discovered is, and even Kay, when we talk to a customer, we ask him, what's the best form of communication for you? Texting, calling, emails. You know that most people say, just text me. It seems to be quicker. It wastes less time. Because every time I find that I get on the phone with somebody, blah, 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 you know, and then you do the social niceties like, how are the kids? Oh, yeah, well, I went to the doctor, blah, 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 blah. I care, but not that much, okay? So get to the point, all right? What are you trying to say to me? So anyways, that's just a suggestion, okay? Anybody else? Any other questions or comments or, you know, good, bad, ugly?
I'd have another comment. When Alex first started coaching me, I think it was about 8 months that every time before our call, I was supposed to send in my schedule. And so I'd send in my schedule for the week. And then when we get on a call, I'd never complete anything in the schedule. And I'm a slow learner, so it took me about 8 months to realize the reason I wasn't accomplishing anything in that schedule is because I wasn't writing the schedule for me. I was writing the schedule for him. And so it's important when you lay this out to lay it out in a day that works for you to accomplish the things you want. And then you'll set yourself up for success. If you write it because Alex does this, 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 and this, and so I need to do this, 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 and this, it's going to be a lot harder for you to do that unless you're super, super disciplined and willing to change to that. So that would be my piece of advice, is just to make sure that you put thought into it and structure it for something that's going to work for you, not something that we would do.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Brandon mentioned that to me, what you discovered also over the years, Brandon, is a lot of agents, you say, write your goals, and they write some goals that kind of looks good for you, but they're not doing it, right? Oh, it looks good for him. You know, I'm going to make 100 grand. Okay. But they're not willing to do the work that it takes to make that. So they write the goal because somebody else beside him says, I'm going to make 90. The guy before that said 50. So they want to sound better, but they're really not going to do it. So it's got to be important that one of the things over the years, one of the first goal setting sessions I went to with Robert Kiyosaki in 1984, he said, it's got to be your goal, not somebody else's. It's got to be your goal, you know? And sometimes we can look at it and say, wait a minute, I think I'm taking on too much. Okay. Let me handle the little things first. And then, you know, let me, let me go and crawl first before I'm going to walk and before I'm going to run. Okay. Let's take the steps. So that's the important thing. So, you know, I hate seeing it when agents send me their goals and their stuff. And I look at it, I go like, you gotta be kidding me. Okay. Like you're on another planet. You're never going to hit this thing. And I'm not trying to be negative, but they don't have a track record of producing the results. And all of a sudden they're going to conquer the world. Like, hello, you know, again. Anyways, anybody else? Brandy? Mute, unmute.
There we go.
There.
I would say one of the biggest things, I have to thank you for saying that you use a paper calendar, because I've had so many people make fun of me for still using one. And so it's really good to hear that I'm doing the right thing. I would say my biggest struggle right now is trying to stick to my schedule. The kids being at home, and you can see my little one keeps walking over. My husband's got the other two at a doctor's appointment. So there's always these little distractions that are preventing me from doing what I need to do. And then they, you know, once I try to get back into doing it, it takes a while to get back into it.
Right.
But I did just have a thought. I've got a neighbor girl down the street that offered to help babysit throughout the summer. So I'm thinking maybe I'll schedule certain hours every day where I can lock myself in the room and she can take care of the kids. So
Right. Or I was thinking about another method. What we can do is I can get one of those dog collars. You can put it on your neck, and every time you don't do the thing you're supposed to do, I'll zap you.
That might not be a bad idea. But no, it was still really good information, and I appreciate it.
Good. Julie, Wayne, any of you have any other comments? No?
Okay, well, I appreciate you guys for getting on. We will see you next week, and we'll see you on your coaching calls. So if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out to Alex or myself. We'd be happy to help.